tank fuel pump and level sender unit on a Skoda Fabia MK1 99 to 2007. If you've got a fuel delivery issue, such as the car won't start or it takes longer to start, when it runs poorly, it's got poor acceleration, surging, engine power fade at higher speeds or higher fuel consumption. You may also have a tank level indicator issue where the gauge doesn't correlate to the fuel in the tank. You may need to change out your fuel tank pump and sender unit if you know that everything else is working fine. On the 1.9 TDI PD engine, there are two fuel pumps relating to the fuel delivery system. One of them being the tandem pump on the side of the head, which lifts fuel from the fuel filter to the injectors. The other being the primary fuel pump within the tank itself, which lifts fuel into the fuel filter reservoir. Luckily on these cars you can gain access to the fuel pump by lifting up the rear seat and pulling back the carpet. One of the first tests you want to do is to see if the pump is initiating, and you can do this by putting your ear to the top of the fuel pump, or more commonly at the fuel filler spout. Turn the ignition key to position 2 and you should hear the pump priming. If you don't hear anything, you can check the fuse. Open the panel at the side of the dash, and it's fuse number 61, which in the book refers to petrol engine. I'm not sure if they intended to put a different fuse in for a diesel engine, but when I tested it, it did cut the power to my pump, which is a diesel engine. Yours might be different, so you best check this against your exact model. The relay for this is under the driver's dashboard, tucked up near the top. So you'll have to take the lower panel out if you want access to this. The relay is in position 4, which is the top right, except for the very early models. I believe in the first year of production it was bottom right, position 15. I managed to hold the carpet up utilising the seat belts crossed over onto the headrests, which worked fine, and then placed something heavy on the other piece of carpet. Lift off the circular disc cover from the top where the arrow is. Mine's covered in thick dust, so I'll have to clean that up. Here's the blue return pipe. You need to clean all this dust off with a brush and vacuum. This area needs to be meticulously clean. You don't want any contaminants going back into the tank and through the system. With the ignition off, we can disconnect the feed connection, and if we take a look at it, it's the two fatter wires that feed the actual pump, and in this case the solid brown wire is the returning earth and the blue and white is the feed, with the two remaining wires for the level indicator. What we can do is check whether there's the correct power going to the pump. What you should see is battery voltage when you activate the pump. And check that with a multimeter set onto volts. We can also check the pump motor, again checking between pins 1 and 4 with the meter set to ohms resistance. You should get some resistance between about 1 and 3 ohms. If you get an open circuit, the motor's dud. Likewise with very high resistance, which will create heat and motor inefficiency. Clean all this area up. The fuel pump is secured by a large jam jar top circular fastener, which needs the special tool to gently unwind and release the fastener in a controlled manner, rather than using a screwdriver and hammer, which could potentially slip and cause not only damage and leaks, but pose a fire risk if you happen to slip or drop it, causing a metal on metal spark. However unlikely, it's not worth the risk. Likewise, as you're dealing with flammable liquids, you need to be mindful of the dangers. Always wear protective gloves. and eyewear. Well, enough of the pep talk. Back to me fabricating a tool. You can of course buy special tools for this, but I do like to save money where I can, and it'll only cost me time and energy. That's not a bad job really. Reasonable bit of welding. Should be just the ticket for the job. When you take the fuel pipes off, make sure it's well ventilated. You'll probably get a little bit of spillage of fuel. You need plenty of rags around. If you look closely at each pipe's connection mounting, there's a little rectangle button that you just press in and then pull it off. You might need a little screwdriver to do that. Be careful not to force it, they'll just easily come off. Once you've got your pipes off, fit your desired release tool. And release the ring. Take that off. Here's the jam jar top, sealing ring. Take a note of the arrow marking on the pump towards the rear. Initially lift the pump up slightly, releasing it from the seam. And as the body of the pump is wider than the seal, you need to release the seal from the tank rim. Then carefully ease the pump out, draining any excess fuel. Lifting it onto a clean prepared lint-free cloth. Taking a look at the pump, you can see the rubber or silicone sealing ring. And if we look at the top, you can see the part number and the fitting direction arrow. You can see this one's a little bit dirty, but still functions fine. And is the level indicator mechanism and float, which functions nice and smoothly. If yours is rough, rattly or bent, that could be a problem, but it's more likely to be a worn variable resistor, so you want to examine that closely. Here's the gradations on the resistor, and you can just about see the two contacts, which are precisely tensioned to both work and not wear the resistor out too much. So I wouldn't mess with that. I'd just fit a new sender unit. Mine's working fine, so I think I'll just clean it up with some diesel. If you're fitting a new one, then you want to be renewing the seal as well. Fitting the unit back, align the arrow to the rear of the car and feed the pump unit in. Then you need to fit the seal, putting a bit of fuel on the seal if it's dry, all the way around. Before you finally push home the top of the unit. You might have to jiggle it about a bit so you don't trap anything like the float up against a baffle. It should go down nice and freely. Then replace the jam jar top. Align the arrow correctly. And then tighten down until it's nice and tight and snug and doesn't leak, but not overly tight that it compromises the seal. Reconnect the fuel lines onto the correct inlet and outlet ports. They should just seat down naturally into their original positions. Push down until you hear them click and fully attached. And clean the whole area of spilt fuel. Reconnect the electrical connection. And replace the cover. Insert in the bottom cable end first, as the clips are angled slightly back, as you can see here, compared with the clip at the top, which is 90 degrees to the surface. And make sure the cover's fully in place and seals all around the edge, because it'll stop any unwanted smells coming through to the passenger compartment. And then test it to see if it's working, and pay particular attention to the fuel level indicator, so you know the float is floating freely. And the job's a good one. I hope this helped you out, guys. If you've got any questions, leave a comment in the comment section below. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.